Emma had never imagined her life would intertwine with the world of billionaires and luxury. Coming from a modest background, she was raised to value kindness and hard work above all. When she met Daniel Grayson at a charity event, she didn't even know who he was, only that his laugh was genuine and his heart seemed to understand hers. Their connection blossomed quickly, defying the expectations of those around them. Soon, the media called their marriage a fairy tale beyond status, and pictures of their simple yet elegant wedding filled every magazine cover. Despite belonging to one of the most powerful business dynasties in the country, Daniel never let wealth overshadow his love for Emma. His brothers, Ethan, Michael, and Adrian, saw how she grounded him. They admired her calm nature and how she brought laughter back into their cold mansion. Yet behind the glittering smiles of family portraits, two hearts festered with envy. Lila, Daniel's spoiled sister, couldn't stand how a nobody had captured her brother's world. And Vanessa, Daniel's ex-lover, who once dreamed of becoming Mrs. Grayson, simmered with rage at seeing Emma take the place she believed was hers. What began as whispers of jealousy soon hinted at something far darker. The news of Emma's pregnancy brought joy to Daniel's heart unlike anything he had ever felt before. He began to fuss over her every need, personally cooking her meals, canceling meetings to stay by her side, and ensuring she never lifted a finger. The mansion that once echoed with the sounds of business discussions now filled with soft laughter and baby plans. But where there was happiness, envy soon found a way to creep in. Lila, who had always been used to attention and control, grew resentful watching her brother's world revolve around Emma. She started whispering to anyone who would listen that Emma's pregnancy was perfectly timed, that it was all a clever trap to secure her position and fortune. Just when Daniel and Emma thought they had left the past behind, Vanessa reappeared, pretending to be a supportive old friend. She brought expensive gifts, sweet smiles, and poison disguised as sympathy. Lila found in Vanessa the ally she had been craving, someone equally bitter, equally cunning. Together, they began weaving stories that Emma was controlling, selfish, and using Daniel's love against him. For a short while, Daniel felt the sting of doubt, confused by the subtle manipulation surrounding him. But his elder brothers noticed the shift immediately. Ethan, ever the watchful protector, called Lila out at a family dinner, his tone cold and warning. "Stay away from Emma," he said. Yet his warning fell on deaf ears. Lila's bitterness had already taken full control. Lila's jealousy had turned into obsession, and Vanessa's thirst for revenge only fueled the fire. Together, they decided that Emma needed to be put in her place. They waited for the perfect opportunity, a day when Daniel would be out of town for a high-profile meeting. That morning, as Emma prepared to go for her regular pregnancy checkup, neither she nor the hospital staff could have imagined the danger walking toward them. Lila and Vanessa arrived hours later, both wearing designer sunglasses and confident smirks, carrying a false air of concern. They claimed to be Emma's close relatives, worried about her health, and with a discreet envelope of cash slipped into the nurse's pocket, they were granted access to Emma's private room. When Emma looked up and saw them, her heart dropped. Her instincts screamed that their presence meant no good. Vanessa stepped forward first, her voice dripping with venom. "Still playing the perfect little wife, aren't you?" she sneered. "Must be nice to enjoy a life you didn't earn." Emma tried to keep her composure, reminding herself that stress wasn't good for her baby. She stood slowly, her hand on her belly, and whispered, "Please leave." But Vanessa only laughed. Lila closed the door with a sharp click, her eyes burning with resentment. "No one's leaving," she hissed, stepping closer. Emma backed away, trembling, realizing she was trapped in a room with two women who wanted to destroy her. The air inside the hospital room turned electric with tension, and before Emma could reach for the call button, Vanessa lunged forward. Her shove sent Emma crashing backward onto the hospital bed, the metal frame creaking under the sudden impact. Emma gasped in pain, one hand instinctively flying to her belly. "Stop, please, don't do this," she cried, but her plea only fueled their cruelty. Lila grabbed a handful of her hair, yanking her head back viciously. "You think you're better than us," she screamed, her voice cracking with years of pent-up jealousy. Vanessa's laughter filled the room like poison, each word cutting deeper. "You were nothing before Daniel. Nothing." The nurse who had let them in stood frozen in horror before finally bolting toward the door, shouting for security. Emma tried to shield her stomach, tears blurring her vision as another shove sent her sprawling to the floor. Pain rippled through her body. A sharp, searing ache spread across her abdomen. "My baby," she whispered, her voice trembling, her strength fading. Outside, alarms blared, and the corridor erupted in chaos. The Graysons' personal bodyguard, who had been stationed nearby for Emma's safety, rushed to the scene. He pulled out his phone and recorded the brutal attack, ensuring no one could twist the truth. Within seconds, he was by Emma's side, helping the doctors lift her onto a stretcher. As she was rushed into the emergency room, blood stained her gown, and her body went limp, unconscious, her fate uncertain. The meeting room at Grayson Tower was filled with a quiet hum of discussion as Daniel and his brothers reviewed the quarterly reports. Everything seemed routine, until Daniel's phone began to ring. Seeing the hospital's number flash across the screen, his brow furrowed in concern. When he answered, the color drained from his face. The voice on the other end was trembling, urgent. "Mr. Grayson, it's your wife, there's been an attack." For a moment, time seemed to stop. The phone slipped from Daniel's hand, clattering against the polished conference table as his breathing turned shallow. Ethan and Adrian exchanged alarmed looks before Ethan picked up the call, demanding details. When he heard the words "unconscious" and "bleeding," his composure snapped. Within minutes, chaos turned into command. Ethan barked orders into his phone, his tone sharp and cold. "Seal off the hospital. No one gets in or out without my authorization. Secure every camera, every record." Adrian, the quiet strategist, stood with his jaw clenched, eyes dark with fury. "Whoever touched her," he said in a low, deadly voice, "will beg for mercy they'll never receive." The brothers moved with precision. Security teams deployed, helicopters readied. Daniel, though pale and shaking, forced himself into the chopper, whispering only one thing: "Please let her be okay." As the helicopter blades thundered to life and the city shrank below them, the Grayson brothers were no longer businessmen. They were a storm racing toward vengeance and love intertwined in fury. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the hospital corridor as Daniel, Ethan, and Adrian stormed in, flanked by a dozen private guards and two of the family's top lawyers. The normally calm, composed aura of the Grayson brothers had vanished. What remained were three men fueled by rage and grief. Nurses and patients stared as the entourage swept past, clearing the way straight to the waiting area where Vanessa and Lila sat. Both women stood abruptly, pretending to be distraught. Lila's mascara was smudged, and Vanessa clutched a tissue, putting on a performance of fake concern. "Daniel, thank God you're here," Vanessa began, her voice trembling. "It was an accident." But before she could finish, Ethan raised his tablet, eyes burning. "Save your lies," he snapped. The video played for everyone to see. Vanessa shoving Emma, Lila yanking her hair, Emma collapsing in agony. The hospital staff gasped in shock. Daniel's face turned pale, then red with uncontrollable fury. His body shook as he stepped forward, glaring at his sister. "You tried to kill my child," he roared, the words echoing through the entire floor. Lila stammered. I didn't mean, she provoked us." But Adrian cut her off coldly, his voice like steel. "You're finished." Ethan gestured to the guards. "Detain them both. No one lays a hand on our family and walks free." As Vanessa and Lila were restrained, Daniel turned away, his heart breaking, whispering only one thing: "Emma, please hold on." By morning, the Grayson Empire had transformed from a business powerhouse into a battlefield of justice. The family's legal team worked through the night, drafting lawsuits, freezing accounts, and coordinating with the media. At precisely 8 a.m., the Graysons' chief attorney stood before a crowd of reporters outside the mansion gates. Cameras flashed as he announced that Vanessa would face a multimillion-dollar lawsuit for assault, defamation, and emotional trauma inflicted upon Mrs. Emma Grayson. Every word echoed through television screens across the city, shaking the elite social circle that once idolized Vanessa. Simultaneously, Ethan signed an executive order cutting Lila off from every family privilege. Her credit cards cancelled, her mansion access revoked, her trust fund frozen. From this moment, he declared coldly, she is no longer protected by the Grayson name. Within hours, the brothers held a press conference at Grayson Tower. Daniel stood silently beside Ethan and Adrian as footage of the hospital attack played on a large screen behind them. Gasps filled the room as reporters watched the brutal truth unfold. The public, horrified by the violence against a pregnant woman, rallied behind Emma with overwhelming sympathy. That night, every news channel covered the scandal. Vanessa's modeling contracts were cancelled, her sponsors released statements cutting ties, and social media exploded with outrage. Lila, once admired in high society, became a symbol of disgrace. Her face splashed across headlines reading, "Billionaire sister turns on family. Graysons strike back." The world now knew what betrayal cost. The investigation dug deeper than anyone expected. What initially seemed like a personal act of jealousy soon revealed a far darker web of manipulation. Ethan's private investigators uncovered a series of hidden bank transfers to Vanessa, payments disguised as brand partnerships, but originating from accounts tied to Marcus Lang, the Graysons' most ruthless business rival. Marcus had long resented the family's dominance in the corporate world, and Vanessa had become his perfect weapon, an insider with motive and access. Adrian, meticulous and relentless, followed the digital trail himself. After 48 hours of non-stop work, he confronted Marcus at a luxury golf resort, dropping a thick folder of evidence on the table between them. "You tried to destroy our family," Adrian said coolly, "but you just signed your own downfall." Within hours, the Graysons' lawyers filed a public lawsuit and turned over evidence to federal authorities. News outlets erupted with headlines exposing Marcus's corruption. His company's stock plummeted overnight, investors fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. As for Vanessa, she didn't even fight when the police arrived. Tears streaked her face as cameras flashed, her wrists cuffed. "I didn't know," she whispered, trembling. But it didn't matter anymore. She was nothing more than a pawn crushed by the billionaires she tried to outsmart. The Grayson mansion, once a place of warmth and laughter, now felt heavy with silence as Lila stood before her father and brothers. Her designer dress and trembling hands betrayed the fear she tried to hide. The Grayson patriarch, a man known for his composure, looked at his daughter with deep disappointment. "You've shamed our name, our blood, and everything this family stands for," he said, his voice low but final. Lila's tears fell freely as she dropped to her knees. "Please, father. I made a mistake. I didn't mean for it to go that far," she cried, her voice breaking. But her words fell on hearts that could no longer feel sympathy. Daniel stood behind their father, his face pale with heartbreak and fury. He had loved his sister once, protected her even when she was wrong. But now, every time he looked at her, all he saw was Emma lying unconscious, covered in blood. His voice was cold, sharp as glass. "You nearly killed your own blood," he said. "You're no sister of mine." That night, Lila left the mansion under the flashing lights of reporters' cameras, her reputation shattered. Within days, headlines screamed, "Grayson's sister disowned after hospital attack scandal." And just like that, Lila Grayson was erased from the world she once ruled. The soft beeping of the heart monitor was the first sound Emma heard as she slowly drifted back to consciousness. Her vision was blurry at first, but then she saw him, Daniel, sitting beside her, his eyes red from sleepless nights, his hand wrapped tightly around hers. When he noticed her stir, relief flooded his face. "Emma, thank God," he whispered, pressing his forehead to her hand. She tried to speak, her voice weak, but before she could ask, Daniel smiled through tears. "You're safe. And so is our baby." Her heart filled with gratitude and disbelief, and tears slid silently down her cheeks. Over the next few days, the hospital room became her sanctuary. Ethan and Adrian visited daily, ensuring that only trusted doctors and guards surrounded her. The Grayson brothers spared no expense: private medical teams, 24-hour surveillance, and absolute privacy. The media soon picked up on the story, dubbing the brothers' swift retribution the Billionaire Justice. News outlets praised their unity and power, while the world admired Emma's resilience. As Daniel brushed her hair back gently, Emma whispered, "You didn't just save me. You saved what love means." She finally understood. True family wasn't about bloodlines or money, but loyalty, protection, and unconditional love. The scandal sent shockwaves through every corner of the city. From glittering skyscrapers to quiet cafes, everyone was talking about the Graysons, the attack, the revenge, and the justice that followed. Social media erupted with footage of the hospital assault and the brothers' press conference, clips spreading faster than wildfire. Hashtags like #BillionaireJustice and #StandWithEmma trended worldwide. People were stunned not just by the cruelty of the act, but by how fiercely the Grayson brothers defended Emma, even when it meant disowning their own blood. News outlets dissected every angle of the story. Talk shows replayed Daniel's furious outburst, "You tried to kill my child," while commentators called the Graysons a symbol of strength and moral authority. Major corporations began cutting ties with Marcus Lang's remaining partners, afraid of public backlash. Vanessa's former clients wiped her from their portfolios overnight. Instead of tarnishing their name, the tragedy only made the Graysons more powerful and respected. Investors trusted them more, employees admired them deeply, and the public viewed them as men who valued family over fortune. For the first time in years, their empire wasn't just known for wealth, it was known for loyalty, justice, and the courage to protect what truly mattered. Months passed, and the chaos surrounding the scandal slowly faded, leaving behind only memories and lessons carved deep in everyone's hearts. Lila, now living far from the public eye, spent her nights haunted by guilt. The headlines had stopped, but the shame never did. In a moment of courage, she began writing letters to Emma. Long, heartfelt apologies confessing that envy had blinded her, that she would give anything to undo her actions. When Emma finally received the letters, she read them quietly, tears glistening in her eyes. Despite all the pain, her heart still held compassion. She sent one simple message back: "Forgiveness doesn't erase pain, but I hope you find peace." It wasn't reconciliation, but it was mercy. Though never welcomed back into the Grayson circle, Lila found a new path. She began working with shelters for abused women, using her story as a warning, and her regret as redemption. A year later, the Grayson mansion was once again filled with joy and laughter. After everything they had endured, Emma finally held her newborn baby boy in her arms, his tiny fingers curling around hers. Daniel stood beside her, his eyes shimmering with pride and love. The brothers decided to celebrate not just the child's birth, but the miracle of survival, unity, and healing. They hosted a grand event at the same hospital where tragedy had once struck, inviting every nurse, doctor, and loyal employee who had stood by Emma's side. When Daniel stepped up to announce the baby's name, his voice broke slightly. "We name him Hope," he said, looking at Emma, "because he reminds us that even in pain, love always finds a way to rise." Tears filled Emma's eyes as she gazed at her family, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and the very peace she once thought she'd lost forever. The cool night breeze swept across the hospital balcony as Daniel wrapped his arms around Emma, pulling her close. Their newborn slept peacefully inside, the tiny heartbeat that had survived so much. Daniel's voice was soft but filled with unwavering promise as he whispered, "No one will ever hurt you again." Behind them, Ethan and Adrian stood quietly, their eyes filled with pride as they looked at their nephew, a symbol of everything they had fought to protect. Below, the city lights shimmered like stars, reflecting a truth they all now understood. Power meant nothing without honor, and love was the greatest victory of all.